Thank you so much to today's Patreon sponsors, Bob White and Dr. Dread. Both are terrific supporters of this channel.
Hey guys, it's me, Andrew. I'm doing the fight Ks. I have a Jad task. 73k till 82 Slayer. It's going along nicely. And I'm really hoping I beat Jad. Because it's gonna suck if I don't. I mean, it really won't. I won't get the 25k XP bonus, which will suck. I don't know where he is. Oh, there he is. Come on. Mage. Come on, we can do this. Range.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew AJT, and today we're going to take a look back at Pre-EoC RuneScape. This is really kind of a forgotten era of RuneScape. Everyone remembers the 2006, 2007 era of RuneScape. I just made a whole playlist on those. If you haven't seen that, that'll be down below. But I wanted to talk today about Pre-EoC RuneScape, kind of from maybe 2008 to 2012, I would say. Maybe a little bit wider than that even, and a lot of people played during this era, and really it's not talked about too much anymore. If you don't know what Pre-EoC means, it's basically just anything that was before the Evolution of Combat update, which is what you see here, which was released in November of 2012. Technically it would include 2006 and 2007, but usually people mean like 2008 and onward before EoC. And EoC was basically the update that in many people's minds kind of ruined the game. It really messed with the combat system. It was not popular. I stopped playing at the time. A lot of people stopped playing. But the years before the EoC and after 2007 were actually quite good. I'll probably have a lot of things to show you. In fact, I have almost endless content of Pre-EoC that we're probably not even going to scratch the surface of it in this video. So I'll try to show you guys some highlights. It's not super well organized either. I just spent a few hours actually looking through my old hard drives at these videos and pictures and text documents of loot and stuff like that from Barrows and Abyssal Demons and Slayer and all that. So this video might be kind of jumping around between the years, but that's okay. I really just want to show you guys the highlights and some cool things that I remember from the time. Funny enough, if I had to think of it, after I made the 06 pictures video, I actually remembered the 06 RuneScape era better in my head than I did the Pre-EoC era, but that's just because I've had time to look through all those pictures and it brought back a lot of memories. So I'm pretty sure that once I go through some of these old videos and pictures, the same memories from the Pre-EoC era will return, and hopefully if you guys played back then, they will for you as well. Even if you didn't play, you might find these pictures interesting. This is RuneScape HD. This is Pre-EoC before Evolution of Combat was ever a thing. These are during the trade limit days for the most part, so definitely a lot of cool stuff here. Frankly, it's a little bit overwhelming for me because there's so many things I could talk about that I'm not even sure I could do it justice in one video. Maybe I'll make multiple parts if this video is popular. But one thing we could talk about here is the PKing back then. The Mage Bank was still very popular. It was popular in 06 and 07 RuneScape, and that didn't really go away in Pre-EoC. If you wanted to PK in the wild, going to Mage Bank was a good bet. You could always find teams there or solo PKers, and the summoning aspect really changed it because now you had Beast of Burden. You see I have the big tortoise here, and that could give you a lot of extra supplies. I suppose a good place to start would be with one of my favorite PvP minigames of all time, and this is Fist of Guthix. This is not in OSRS in any capacity, so it's pretty fun to look back on this minigame. It's a very unique concept. It's a 1v1 PvP minigame, and basically it's played in two segments. One player who's on defense has to take this weird stone thing and carry it around, and you see on the top right it says charge 15. The more you carry this thing around, the more charges you get. And when you're out here kind of on the edges of the minigame, you don't get that many charges. I think I'm only getting like 3 at a time here. But the closer you get to the center, the more charges you will get. So you definitely want to spend some time in the center, but I usually would hang out around the corners here just to kind of stock up on some charges. And once I was found, you could use this one-time teleport tab to get to the middle here, and you see the charges actually are going up quite quick. The other player's job is to PK you as soon as possible before you get too many charges, and once he does that successfully, you guys switch and you have to PK him to keep him from getting charges, and whoever has the most charges by the time you're both done is the winner. Now, the cool thing about this minigame is it's purely kind of cat and mouse. You can't really fight back because you get a message when the minigame starts when you're on defense that the effectiveness of your stats have been reduced, and you also can't fight while wielding the stone, which you need to get charges for. But the funny thing about this video is I kind of found a way around this. One thing they kind of overlooked is if you have summoning familiars in this minigame, they are actually not nerfed at all. So when I was in 99 summoning, I would take this Steel Titan and actually unleash it on the attacker. And the minigame didn't always have the best matching system. Sometimes you would be paired with someone much lower level. So this guy who's supposed to be PKing me is actually getting owned by my Steel Titan, and there's like nothing he can do about it. Here's the other side of it. Here's me playing in 2012, and this is on offense here. Really good gear. I got the equivalent of the Infernal Cape there. I got the Onyx Ring Eye, the Dungeoneering stuff like the Caddock Staff, the Torva Virtus, which would increase your hit points, and this is how most games would usually go. You find the person hiding somewhere, they teleport to the middle, and then you can run into the center to try to finish them off there before they get too many charges. There's also those houses there which actually hurt you to enter, but they have teleports in them, so there was definitely a lot of strategy to it. This time doing a declaw spec to finish this guy off pretty quickly. I did a poll the other day to see if people wanted Stealing Creation and also Fist of Guthix to come into OSRS, and most people seem to think that they would be worthwhile additions. I know they would take a while to add because they can't just port these games over. OSRS is a different engine, I'm assuming, so a lot of this would have to be made from scratch, the graphics, the mechanics, and all that, but I think they would be worthwhile additions. Let me know what you guys think. It wouldn't be the first time that pre-EoC content was brought into OSRS. In fact, it actually happens all the time. I'm pretty sure you guys could list a whole bunch of examples in the comments, and there's even a few that I can think of just off the top of my head. For example, in Pre-EoC they added this thing called the Dominion Tower, and this was a place where you could fight old quest bosses. I'm sure it's still there in RuneScape 3. And this was actually added to OSRS in the form of the Nightmare Zone. And the guy who runs the Nightmare Zone, the NPC, is actually Dominic Onion, which is a play on words from Dominion. And one of the rewards from the Dominion Tower was these Goliath Gloves, which are basically ferocious gloves in OSRS, which were added semi-recently, only around a year ago. The cool thing about these, though, in Pre-EoC is they actually served as a decent standalone weapon. Here's me risking it for a biscuit, which is what everyone said back then. And they were kind of comparable to a whip as far as a standalone weapon, just punching people with them, so was super fun to use. Definitely one of my favorite weapons from the time. They weren't around too long because EoC came out not super long after they were released, and I'm not really sure if they're any good as a standalone weapon in RuneScape 3. So the pre-EoC kind of 2008 to 2012 era is when RuneScape videos became very popular. We see on my recommended channels in 2011 RuneShark here, also Machinima, which partnered with a lot of RuneScape channels, and just because I don't know when I'm ever going to show this picture again, we see some things like Fred just put up a new video, better check that out. Classic Game Room, I used to watch their channel. Melee videos, I would watch a whole bunch. College Humor, Let's Plays were huge at the time. Here's my YouTube channel in 2010, and you can see YouTube was a lot simpler back then, probably for the better. Very simple interfaces here, your subscribers. I had 760, which I was apparently very happy with because I circled it twice. That was a pretty decent amount at the time. You can see my Brawl friend code here. Channel comments is something I miss. You could just kind of post on anyone's channel, comments, have a little discussion there. Very, very nice system. Overall, YouTube was a great place at the time. It's still very good today, obviously, but it was a little bit easier to navigate. Here's a few pictures of someone who was a huge inspiration for my YouTube videos, So Solid 2K. This guy used to make maxing videos where he would basically go to Castle Wars with a Castle Wars bracelet and see how high you could hit with different weapons, and those were some of my favorite videos to watch. I think I've watched his max hits with Melee 3 maybe 50 times or something in my life. He pretty much just stopped playing at some point. He's still around. He did a Reddit Q&A a few years ago, but he hasn't played RuneScape as far as I can tell in a very long time. If he came back, that would probably be the most epic comeback of all time. Speaking of famous RuneScape players, I did have an opportunity to do a Dungeoneering room with Zezima here, which was very cool. I remember this. You can see in the chat someone says, gonna reclaim rank number 1, and he kind of gives a vague answer. definitely an awesome RuneScape player in pre-EoC. Even at the time, everyone knew him just like they do today. Here's me finding Zizima in 2009, which was a pretty big deal. People would really message each other saying, "Oh my god, Zizima's walking around in Edgeville." I think in this example he actually turned his private chat on so people could actually find him. I think he just liked to have all these people freaking out over him. That must be a pretty cool feeling. And you can see here I'm saying recording. That was very common. People would say like, "Oh, I'm going to put this on YouTube," and that wasn't actually a meme. You know, nowadays people say hi YouTube and all that stuff, but people were actually very excited to hear that something could be on YouTube at the time. You can see my stats here for 2009, and if they're this bad in 2009, you can imagine how awful I was in 2006 and 2005. 31 agility there. To be fair, I was free to play for a long time in the earlier years, but still, those are really bad stats. I was typically pretty slow to train new skills. I wouldn't really figure them out for a while. Like when Summoning came out, I took a while to figure that out, and same with Dungeoneering. You can see my bank here, and actually not too bad. Got the Initiate there, the rune items. That shield on the right is from Fist of Guthix, that spiky one. Here was my best melee combat gear at the time, or at least pretty close to it. I'm pretty sure I had a whip as well. But you can see there the D-Med, not the best looking, but for the time it probably was fairly good. Here was my bank as well, not the greatest cash stack. Pretty junky items. You can see some Castle Wars gear. Certainly played a lot of that. I had a lot of those cats too. I love cats in real life, so when they started adding a whole lot of cats to RuneScape, that was certainly very fun as well. I think that's Fist of Guthix gear as well, the like combat robes there. Not really sure. And I kind of format my bank pretty similar to this today, with all these potions and all that, but the items were not the greatest. I definitely got a lot better though, because you can see here in this rushing video from 2010, the gear that I'm risking alone is pretty substantial, with full bandos and all that, fire cape. This is the old bounty hunter, after the bounty hunter crater was removed and turned into kind of a slayer dungeon. And I was very good at rushing. I really practiced this a lot, trying to PJ people at the right time. There's some Morrigan's chaps there from the PvP armor. I really wish I could include the music from these videos, because you would definitely recognize some of the songs. In fact, they were pretty much played all over the place at the time, and this was always something you had to worry about when doing any sort of PKing, is these mofos coming in and TBing you or freezing you when you're trying to loot, and they actually got a lot of people. The songs you would hear in these videos were usually like Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, which was actually considered the YouTube anthem because it was in like almost every YouTube video. Anytime there was a video without people talking or without commentary, they would pretty much just put that song in. This video in particular had Date to Remember, Downfall of Us All. I mean, that song has a pretty cool intro. There's an Armadillo Totem, which is a nice bounty hunter reward. Here's a picture I took in 2009 of my setup, and it looks like I'm watching a clip of That 70s Show. And this picture was actually taken on a Nintendo DSi. I think it was pretty new at the time, so that explains the awful quality. But this was a pretty common looking setup for the time. No widescreen monitor or two monitors or anything like that, or even a surround sound headset like we have now. Pretty much just a square monitor, and you're not really multitasking. Here's a picture from 2009 of some barrel chest anchor maxing, as I wrote out at the time in Microsoft Paint in case it wasn't abundantly clear. You can see my stats on the right getting a little better actually, 108 combat, which I also wrote out there because you can't see your combat in the skills tab. So many scroll bars at the time, like Jagex used to just love putting scroll bars everywhere, even in the skills tab. I remember people actually complaining about that at the time. One thing I noticed here that kind of made me sad, to be honest, is I'm messaging someone named GoPackers7, who was one of my best friends in pre-EoC, and one day he just never logged in again, and I have no idea what happened. Maybe he just lost interest in the game, or maybe he got a new job or something. There's lots of reasons people quit playing RuneScape, but it's kind of sad actually. I wish I knew what happened to him, or if I could talk to him today. And if you try to add him today, it just says user not found, and unfortunately I didn't have him added on Skype or anything at the time, or his email address, which is how people used to actually communicate at the time, or his AIM account or something, instant messenger. So yeah, I never really knew what happened to him, so kind of sad. Maybe one day he'll see this video. Here's another maxing pick, same hit, so I don't really know why I had 2 of them here. And I do say in the clan chat that I hit a 43 and I missed it, so I guess I was able to hit a 43 with my Saradomin cloak. Here's a picture of a borrowed dragon pickaxe. Remember item lending back then? That was actually a big thing. You could lend items for up to 24 hours, and you would get them back no matter what because they had that red circle on them. I wrote Dragon Pick my goal, which, I don't know, to be honest, that's a pretty newbie goal. Maybe I wanted to get it as a drop because I spent a lot of time killing those Chaos Dwarf things for the Dragon Pickaxe drop. I think I did actually get one, and they were like 6 mil or something at the time, so was actually a pretty cool item to go for. It might be cool if they added borrowing or lending to OSRS, but there's some downsides to it. It's kind of weird seeing everyone with items that don't belong to them. You can only borrow 1 item at a time though, so it wasn't really abusable. There's something really weird about watching these old Pre-EoC videos and looking at these pictures, and I really can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it's the fact that I'm getting nostalgic over them, except the graphics are better than the game I play now, so it's kind of confusing my brain. Don't get me wrong, I love the OSRS graphics, but maybe that's kind of weird for me. And it's really hard to define this era in any way because we think of 06 RuneScape as kind of like the beginning for most of us, and OSRS is like the future or the present day RuneScape, so what exactly was Pre-EoC? It's very hard to define it or really give it some signature characteristics, and it was a really long time period as well, like 5 years, and all of them were marked by a lot of change and don't necessarily resemble each other. So I don't know what to make of all this, but it was definitely a great time period. A lot of us enjoyed it, and it's the reason we're still playing RuneScape today. So let me know what you think of it. How do you look back on Pre-EoC, and how is it really defined for you? Let me know if you guys want to see more of these, and if you're interested in them. I'm not exactly sure what the interest level of this is, because not a lot of people really talk about Pre-EoC, but if there's interest, I'll definitely do more. If I do make another one, or even like a series out of this, I'll put the link to that in the future at the top of the description, so if you're watching this video in the future, definitely check out the description for a playlist or a part 2 or something like that. If there is enough interest, I'll probably make the part 2 to this next week, just like I did with the 06 videos. Definitely leave a like if you enjoyed. That's really the best way to show your support. Also subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever I upload a new video every Tuesday. You can join my clan chat up on screen, AndrewAJT62. You can join our Discord server down below. You can follow me on Twitter down below for updates, and I'll follow you back if you play RS. You can check out my rare pictures of 2006 RuneScape series if you haven't already. The playlist for that will be down below or on the end screen. And lastly, you can support the channel on Patreon with the link in the end screen, where I offer various perks for different levels of support. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.